tonight?
Yes. And then when they're home, like we can.
Fran, are you ready? Or are you all set? Should we? No, just to start. Yeah. Are we? And the mace is how it's supposed to be? Okay. Okay. Welcome everybody. We're gathering today to say goodbye to an extraordinary woman who walked among us for more than a century. And so we're going to say a kapitel of Tehillim in Hebrew. Then David and Fran and each of the grandchildren are going to say a short goodbye. And before they speak, the family asked me to just give a traditional hesped, a eulogy for Auntie Elsa. I was very lucky enough to spend a lot of my childhood with her on all the Yom Tovim, etc. Then when I was married with my own family, every Friday we would go to see Auntie Elsa, and I had the good fortune to spend a lot of time with her, and we were very close. So first I'll say a hesped, then the rest of the speakers will come and give a short some short words. So we'll say these. I'll say each pasuk, and then you could repeat after me. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai royi lo yachzor. Benois dasha yachbitzeini, alme menuchos inaleini. Nafshi yeshoy v'yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeit salmoves lo yirara ki ati madi. Shivtecho mishantecha heimo yenachamuni. Taroich lefonai shulcha neged tzera dishanta b'Hashem enroishi kaisi revaya. Ach toy v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shafti b'veis Adonai li'orech yomim. Okay, if anyone wants to be more comfortable to sit or stand, we're going to start with the first hesped now. Okay. So we're here to give the kavod achroin and be maspid the isha hatzinua v'chashuva Eishes chayo balas midas toivois v'chol amaylois shoimeres toiro mitzvois b'mesiras nafsha Leah basar David Menachem. We're here to say goodbye to Auntie Elsa and Eishes chayo that everyone held so dear. Palge mayim teradeni al shever basami. Our eyes, they stream with tears on the destruction of the daughter of my people. Al shever basami, on the destruction, the shever bas, the daughter ami of my people. I want to briefly just talk about three manners in which Auntie Elsa's life was lived. The shever, the bas and the ami, the fact that her passing marks a shever, a destruction, a bas, a daughter, and an ami of my people. Al shever bas ami. Shever, the passing of Auntie Elsa, has a character of destruction. The Talmud says that when a righteous person dies, it's like the destruction of the Jewish temple. Because just like the Jewish temple is a symbol and a reminder of God's presence in this world, so too a righteous person is a symbol and a reminder of God's presence in this world. And Auntie Elsa was the type of righteous person referenced in this Talmudic passage. Her religiosity was well known. She was deeply modest and pious, happy with her lot, and with no complaints to the Almighty, even though if she wanted to complain, we know she had a right to many. But like the temple, she stood as a banner of God's presence. And just last Monday, when we were with her at her house, and she was in pain and in a makeshift hospital bed, she started to get worked up, asking where her tillim was. Where's my tillim? Where's my tillim? She didn't like when they would take away her tillim or her prayer book. She didn't even have the strength to daven from the tillim, but she wanted to make sure that it was next to her. And this is how she was for most of her life. She one time told me a story. One time I went to see her on a fast day, and she told me that she always fasts on all the Jewish fast days. And one time when she was working as a seamstress at her job, it was a fast day, and she was fasting and working hard as a seamstress. And her boss was giving her a hard time that she was fasting. And then by the lunch hour, once a month, they would come in by the lunch hour and they would clean down the work area with heavy chemicals that nowadays they wouldn't even be allowed to use. And it happened to be that on that day they came and they cleaned down the workstations with the chemicals. So when she came back, she got a bad headache, and she said that this used to happen every month when they would clean down the workstations with these chemicals. She'd get a headache. So her boss was giving her like a hard time, like, I told you so, because you're fasting, you have a headache. But she told me, I always fast, I never get a headache. It was just because of the chemicals that I got a headache. And she was steadfast in her traditions, always saying her daily Tehillim for 102 years, the weekly Perek or Baruchi Nafshis, depending on the season, and all the davenings for the Shabbos and the Yom Tovim, Tefillos, and preserving all facets of Jewish values and customs. Pal Gemayim Teradeini Al Shever Basami. Our eyes stream with tears on the destruction of the daughter of my people. Auntie Elsa was a bas. She was a daughter, she was a mother, she was a wife, a sister, a grandmother, even a great-grandmother to Bennett, an aunt, a great-aunt, and a great-great-aunt. She was a daughter. How many times would she tell us her stories, how she would help her mother with the geese and her father to milk the cows, and how much did she love her parents, how her mother and her grandmother in Moksha taught her how to cook the krepelach and bake all of her famous cakes and cookies. In fact, last week when she was like a little bit confused, and I stress very little, she was just a bit confused, and she said, it's almost Shavuos, I have to go make krepelach. Then also everyone was coming to see her on Monday, so when I got there around 2 o'clock, people were coming in and out. She said, I have to start to bake because lots of people are coming. It was always on her mind to, carry on these traditions, to bake and to cook for the people that came to see her. And that was one of the ways that she showed us how much she loved us all, was by doing special baking of the foods that she decided that we each liked, with or without our input. Everything she made was good, but she decided, for you like this, and you like this, and that's what she made for us. Put it in a bra box, because that's normal, and then she gave it to you. But bring back the bra box, because my neighbor doesn't have any more, so I need it back. And I know that Michael worked with Auntie Elsa to learn some of her recipes, and I know that my aunt and my sister are currently making cheese bekelach for Shavuos to feel a closeness to Auntie Elsa. She's sort of she was the holder of the traditions of how the family cooks for the Yom Tovim. And she was a daughter. Daniela, who were so appreciative of the tremendous care and devotion that she showered on Auntie Elsa the past few years, her dedication was truly unbelievable. She told us that last week at the nights, Auntie Elsa would cry out for her mother. And I remember that my grandfather, Papa, told me that during the last few months of his life that he would always dream about his father, and his father would come to him in his dreams and tell him things like, oh, it's very schwer, it's very hard. And we don't understand these things. But even after 102 years, Auntie Elsa was still connected to her past. She was still thinking of her mother, who was taken away from her when she was still young, hiding in Budapest when the Nazis came and took the Jews of Kapush to Auschwitz, Erev Shavuos right now, and when her parents were taken away from her. And in fact, it was in her past, already in her youth in Kapush, that she knew Uncle Itzi. Auntie Elsa was the cherished wife of Uncle Itzi. They knew each other as kids in Kapush. She used to tell us about the dog that Uncle Itzi's family had back in Kapush, the Hund. And they found each other, but she said not like dogs nowadays. They kept it in the backyard. They found each other again after the war. They married, traveled separately to America, Uncle Itzy through Canada, reunited yet again, and lived, raising 3 children together. Uncle Itzy passed away more than 30 years ago, and we all miss him. Not only because no one else in the family knows how to fix anything except for him, but Uncle Itzy always made Auntie Elsa laugh. And over 30 years without him was no doubt very difficult, and it was far from ideal. But she carried on the best she could and was very gracious in this respect. And Auntie Elsa was a mother and a grandmother no matter how tough. It was shortly after the destruction of European Jewry, after her siblings were killed, and she remarried, and she was pregnant with David, and her husband was stuck in Canada. She was throwing up on the boat the whole way to America. And still, she gave birth to David, no less, in Duquesne, Pennsylvania, at her sister's house, literally in the house, in her bed, while living under the same roof as her brothers. And she worked hard. She worked hard as a seamstress, but unlike the shoemaker's children who go without shoes, she would make clothes for her daughters, and she would fix their clothes. She fixed everybody's clothes, and she loved her daughters quite dearly. And her children, in turn, treated her like a queen. Fran and Susie, always visiting, always taking care of her needs, always complimenting her, specifically complimenting her. That I always noticed. To say that they were devoted would be an immense understatement. And of course, in her final years, when Daniela came on the scene, Daniela treated Auntie Elsa as if she was her own daughter. She loved Auntie Elsa fiercely and attended to every detail. Nothing was too big or too small. And the family has so much gratitude to Daniela for her kindness. And as for David, is there anything more to say than whenever you would talk to Auntie Elsa and ask her, "Was is nice, what's going on?" The news was when she last spoke to David, or when she was going to speak to David next. "Oh, I spoke to David last night. Oh, David's going to call me this evening. This is when David's coming in." And despite being in Denver for so long, David was always taking care of anything and everything that needed to be taken care of. He somehow even tended to house repairs all the way from Colorado. He was constantly in touch with Auntie Elsa and always visiting on her birthdays and throughout every year, many times. Auntie Elsa was a very, very beloved bubby to Matthew and to Jennie and Kevin, to Jessica and Dan, to Michael and to Erin, and of course, most excitingly, to Bennett, the great-grandson. She was adored by her sons-in-laws, Bruce, Olav Shalom, and Yibad L'chaim Tovim Ed. Auntie Elsa was also a good friend. I understand that the door to the apartment on Kedzie and Division was always open, and people were going in and out and in and out, because her and Uncle Itzy, they knew how to schmooze, they knew how to make people smile, and she always had many, many friends, right? I mean, she was 102 years old, and so sometimes the past was a long time ago. But Auntie Elsa was a good friend, and she had many, many friends. And Auntie Elsa was a sister. How close was she to her older sister, Aunt Sarah, seeing her leave Kapush and reuniting with her in Duquesne and then in Chicago? They were so very close. And Auntie Elsa was close to all of her siblings, to Uncle Joe and to Auntie Rivchu, always exchanging recipes and calling each other. They'd get together for Thanksgiving. How close was she to Papa, to my grandfather, spending countless Shabbosim and Yom Tovim with him, attending the same shul together with him. They shared a very deep bond. And of course, her baby sister, Auntie Reggie, always calling Auntie Reggie, always, and so on, complaining that she couldn't hear her, but calling and calling. With all her siblings, this is how it was. Then there was, unfortunately, of course, the profound sense of loss that she felt after each of them passed away before her. Finally, she was an aunt and a great aunt. But today's a short day. We don't have time to discuss how wonderful of an aunt she was to all of us, specifically to the Chicagoans, to Etty and to my mom, to Judy and to Auntie Debbie, and how she treated her great nephews and nieces like her own grandchildren. She was literally part of the fabric of our lives. Palgemayim Teradeni Al Shever Basami Our eyes stream with tears on the destruction of the daughter of my people. There was also a destruction of my people. There's a level of there's a aspect of this loss that is a loss of the basami. It's a public loss. It's a public loss to our whole family, and there's a loss to the nation. In addition to the simply loss of Auntie Elsa, the incredible and special person, this is a loss for our whole family. Auntie Elsa was the last one of the 11 siblings, the last remnant and link of where the Weiss family comes from, the last witness of our family in Kapash and Mukcha. While Auntie Elsa was here, we were able to point, as the Jews pointed by the splitting of the sea, Zekeli Vanvehu, this is our God. So we could point to Auntie Elsa. This is our heritage. These are our values. This is our tradition. But no longer. Auntie Elsa's passing marks an end to the prior generation of our family. And at the same time of the year when it started, in 1944, over 77 years ago, right before Shavuos, right at this time that we stand right now, right before the holiday of Kabbalas HaTorah, of the acceptance of the Torah, which is a symbol of our tradition that gets passed from generation to generation. Right before Shavuos, at nightfall, our great-grandparents, Auntie Elsa's parents, her sister Esther, her sister-in-law Chaya, her brothers Yisrael Mordechai, and Yitzchak, they were murdered in Auschwitz by the Nazis. But then Uncle Shia and Aunt Rose and Aunt Sarah, they had already planted the seeds here in America. And then Auntie Elsa and Uncle Joe, my grandfather and Auntie Reggie, they came over and they lived a lifetime here in America. And this loss is the end of that cycle. And though it was not necessarily easy on any number of counts, Auntie Elsa lived a long life by any measure, and she was incredibly blessed to be sharp as a tack until the end. But at the very least, every one of us, each according to their own level, is still obligated to reflect on and mourn the loss of the generation that were bereft of our connection to the past, and it's a tangible loss. We ask for solace from God and the strength to follow Auntie Elsa's example of resilience, the strength to really think about what is necessary to trod upon the path that Auntie Elsa tirelessly set for us and sacrificed for us day after day after day. She did the hard work, and we just have to follow. The family and all the participants here ask forgiveness. We ask Mechila of the Mace if we didn't treat you with proper respect, if we ever wronged you in any way. And I ask Mechila that I wasn't able to properly be maspid you, and that I wasn't mechabed you enough. We also ask that you don't stop davening for us, and that you be a melet yoshir for our entire family. Bila hamavas lenetzach umacha Hashem dima me'al kol panim. I call David, then Fran, or first Fran.
Well, I really wasn't going to speak because my mom hated long speeches. She said she didn't want to be ever called a woman of valor. But as everyone here knows, my mom was the kindest, most selfless woman on earth. For years, she worked as a dressmaker out of the house, and being the youngest, I was lucky enough to be home with her while David and Susie were at school or socializing. She would sew, and she would get frustrated with my inabilities to do so. But she gave me all of her remnants and a needle and thread, and she helped me make clothes for my dolls. And then, when I couldn't do it, she would whip up an outfit, a full-blown bridal gown for my Barbie dolls in 2 seconds. She was so meticulous about everything. Our house, our clothes. We couldn't leave the house with a thread hanging. She would say, "They're going to think you're an orphan. Come back." She stayed up cooking and cleaning and sewing till all hours of the night. She'd sneak into bed before my dad would get up for work at 4 a.m. so he wouldn't know. Her baking was infamous. To this day, all of my childhood friends remember their favorites. We never needed an alarm clock in our house. We woke up to the smell of freshly baked goods. Her baked goods were our entrance into everyone's homes, as Fee said. She knew everybody's favorites, or she thought she did. And we couldn't get into anybody's house unless we had a package for them. She has always been our warrior. When my dad was dying, she had to have her gallbladder out, and I remember her sitting with her, she was feeding Jessica in her stroller, doubled over in pain, telling me she was fine. But with every health issue, my mom has always pulled through. I would sit with her in the hospital and she would say, "Enough already. It's time." It was so hard for her when Bruce died. She would tell me it was not right. It should have been her. But I knew when she broke her hip and her shoulder that it was imminent, and my heart has been breaking ever since. To watch her go through this has been horrible. And I'm finally glad to see her at peace. I'll miss her every minute. And I just want to thank Daniela for everything that she's done. And that's it.
Hi everybody. I just wanted to, share some of the amazing memories that I have of my bubby. She was a witty woman. That's the way I like to describe her. She always had something smart to say, something funny to say to make you laugh. Even in her last days, my mom went to bring her some water, and she took a sip of it and told her that it tasted bad, and my mom doesn't make good water. It was just the perfect ending to my bubby's wittiness for us, because that is her thing, that these smart comments come. The memories that I share when she injured herself, the previous injury, sitting with her in the hospital, and she's telling me stories about the cow they had in her house, and how they had this cow, and the cow's name was Susie. And I always thought that was hilarious, and she started to laugh about it too, that they did have a cow named Susie, but that was not where my mom's name came from. She insisted that was not where the name came from, but her beloved cow was named Susie. My other memories are of following my bubby around the kitchen with a measuring cup as I tried to learn her recipes. As I tried to record them, I tried to videotape them, I tried to write them down, because we all know that those recipes are infamous. But they'll never be quite right, because Bubby didn't measure. She did not measure. She said a pinch of this, a scoop of that, and it was all with love that all her love was given into everything that she baked. And then I just wanted to say that, she's gonna be so missed, that the smile, every day I think of the smile she had when our little Hund Cappy would come to see her every week and lay there with her, and she was the happiest as can be, just sitting there petting the dog and having everybody around her. That was her happiness, was her family. Thank you.
Hi guys. I always like to stay positive. That's how Bubby and I always were. It was always a joke. Everything was always a smile, and that smile could break your heart or mend it in any moment. And with her, I think most people know I became a chef because I spent my time in the kitchen with Bubby and was always in the kitchen. There wasn't a moment there that she wasn't passing me another chocolate chip cookie and sticking more in my backpack or in my jacket. I would not leave there ever without a bag of chocolate chip cookies and her making sure that she had taken my new shirt and made it so it's not too loose on the side or under the arms. If she found out we went to the store and bought new stuff, she said, "Come over, I have to adjust it," which it could be perfectly fit, and she would say, "I have to adjust it still." And that was always her. She just wanted to be part of everything. And for her and I I'm not going to stand here and lie to you guys and say we had long conversations. We had short conversations. Our conversations, for me, the best ones, were literally looking in each other's eyes, smiling, and just say, I love you. That felt like 3 hours to me instead of, 3 words. So I'm going to miss her, but I will maintain that I will never forget from my youngest age that she constantly told me, I just can't wait to see Papa. So for me, I know they're together, and she is happier than any of us can even imagine, because she's been saying it for the 32 years of my life. So let's just remember her for how great she was to all of us, and that smile and those 3 words, I love you. She said it to everyone, and if she didn't say it, she would just mouth it to you. And also, her love for Cappy was undescribable and boundless, and sneaking him mac and cheese and pieces of lettuce when she found out he was on a diet was one of her little tricks she always had. She'd say, oh, I dropped my napkin and here's a handful for the dog. So her love is boundless, doesn't matter species or person. But thank you all for being here.
It's never easy to lose someone, let alone someone who's been the pinnacle of strength and perseverance for over 102 years. 102 years. Think about that for a second. When Bubby Elsa was born in 1919, Woodrow Wilson was president, and there have been 18 others that have held office since then. In 1919, a loaf of bread cost 7 cents, but we all know that Bubby's challah was priceless, truly priceless, and the best. I bet you in 1919, Bubby would have never imagined the life that lay ahead of her, and there's no way she would have ever imagined that we would be celebrating her life across multiple time zones and countries on something called the internet, something that she never utilized. Our mom, Fran, is Bubby's youngest daughter, and even though Bubby was fiercely independent, my mom was by her side for her entire life until the very end. She was hoping for another 102 years. In fact, I think we thought if anyone was going to live that long for another 102 years, it would be Bubby. She was someone that we thought was truly invincible. She was the only grandparent that I've ever had in my life, and for that, I am forever grateful. I will always cherish my memories with her, playing Rummy Cube at her house, her baking, her sewing together my torn baseball uniforms on her sewing machine. But my fondest memories of Bubby will be the conversations we had. She taught me countless Jewish words and phrases, the good ones and the bad ones. She often had this very reflective look on her face as she told us so many stories from her days as a kid selling whiskey to the people in her village, or sharing a memory of my mom and her siblings and the rest of the kids on Kedzie. But every time I saw her or spoke to her from when I was a little kid up until just the other day, she would say, Michaela, what's new, honey? And most recently she would say, how's business, honey? She was always curious and always wanted us to be happy. Every trip to Bubby's house ended with me giving her a few kisses until she laughed and said, you mashugana enough already. Her story, her strength, and the memories I have of her fill me with so much pride. My heart is always so full when I'm talking or thinking about Bubby, especially as I reflect on her life today. Love you, Bub.
To us, Elsa was Bubby, or just Bub. A woman of many talents, Bubby was an unbelievable baker. And although we can try to make her recipes, a pecan roll just doesn't taste the same unless you're eating it out of a yellow carnival bra box that is older than you. Bubby was an incredible seamstress and dressmaker. She took just as much care tailoring my bat mitzvah dress as she did sewing patches on my brother's baseball uniforms. Above all else, Bobby was a survivor in every sense of the word. From living through the war and every other historical event that has occurred over the last 102 years, to moments when we thought it was the end of her life, Bobby defied all odds, and she just kept on going. One of my dad's favorite stories was about 15 years ago when my parents were called to the hospital in the middle of the night, thinking it was her time. When my parents walked in, Bobby sat up, looked at them, and said, "What? Did they tell you I was going to die? Go home." And then there was another time when Bobby was in the hospital. We visited and asked her what was going on. She rolled her eyes and jokingly said, "I'm having a baby." And a few years ago, when Bobby had her pacemaker put in, the doctor declared that she was good for, and I quote, "another 10,000 miles." Bobby was all-knowing about everything and everyone. Bobby would casually hum as she looked out her front window. What seemed like an innocent activity was actually Bobby's form of neighborhood watch. And she often indulged just in stories about the neighbors' whereabouts and the latest happenings of the movers and shakers of Kedzie Avenue. When I met my husband, Dan Cooper, Bobby said, the Coopers, they're in the insurance business." And even though she was probably talking about the wrong Coopers, she was somehow 100% correct. Bobby was a woman who meant so much to so many, and that feeling was mutual. Bobby's beloved nieces, nephews, great-nieces and great-nephews, and great-great-nieces and nephews visited and checked up on her regularly. Those relationships certainly kept your Aunt Elsa going. Bobby loved you all so much. When planning my wedding, Bobby's most famous line was, "Well, you can't have a party without Svi." And she's right. Her children, grandchildren, and even the birth of her great-grandson, who was born just 8 weeks ago, brought her such nachas. I can't express how full my heart is, Bob, knowing that you got to meet Bennett and to be at his bris. And as for my mom, Bob, there aren't enough words to express what you meant to her. Mom, I admire the way you selflessly cared and fought for Bubby every single day of your life. And I know Bubby appreciated you beyond measure. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Bubby's wonderful caretakers who were with her over the years. Christina, Itza, and of course, our one-of-a-kind Daniela. Bobby would not have enjoyed the same quality of life she did for so long. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your devotion to Bubby and to our family. As my mom said, and we didn't even compare notes, Bobby often said enough already about everything, from politics to her phone ringing too much when you know who was calling, to, even a funeral service that was taking too long. Bobby knew her life was more than enough already, as she experienced so much joy in her 102 years on this earth. From weddings to birthdays and every simcha in between, Bobby has shared in so much good with each one of us. Bobby, you made the Weiss and Ickovic families so very proud. We will continue to tell the world your story, because for us, it could never, ever be enough already. Your memory will live on forever, and I love you, Bob.
Hello, everybody. Well, listen, I'm not going to repeat what everybody said. We know my mom was a great lady. And other than Aunt Shari, who's not here, I've known her longer than anybody else here, obviously. And, I can't thank everybody enough. My sister Susie, my brother-in-law Ed, who constantly were going to see my mother, making sure to bring the dog, Jennie and Kevin and Matthew, and Fran and Bruce, who refused to ever let my mother have a serviceman at the house unless he was there. Bruce, who also insisted on always having his white shirts for business meetings ironed by my mother. That was the only one who could do it right. And Jessica and Dan and little Mikey, I call him, and Erin. Thanks everybody. I mean, and then beyond that, I mean, Etty and Yoel and Phyllis and Yuri and Heshi and Debbie and all the grandkids and great grandkids and stuff. My mother just ate it up. Okay, you couldn't get enough of it. She was thrilled to have everybody there, and love baking. Obviously, we all know that, and it's hard to say thank you to everybody, but everybody's been wonderful. Daniela was unbelievable with my mother. Truly, we really couldn't have done it without her and without everybody who's here, everybody. So that's it. Thank you very much, and we will miss her.
Okay, it's after midday before Shabbos, so we're gonna say the Kel Mole in English. Hey Simcha, do you know where it is? Oh, so it is. But then after this, whatever. Yeah. Okay, and then will you make an announcement that people could, that's... God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper repose on the sheltering wings of your presence in the lofty levels of the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament. Unto the soul of Leah Bas Rav David Menachem, who has gone to her world, and for whose memory we pray. May her repose be in paradise. May the Master of Compassion bring her under the cover of God's wings and bind her soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be her heritage, and may she repose on her resting place in peace, and let us respond, Amen. Check for you now. Okay. Next time, I hope whoever wants to tear.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's customary that we participate in the burial. The cemetery workers will place some earth onto the ground. It's customary to place a couple of measures of earth into the grave and put the shovel back into the mound and not to hand the shovel from person to person.
A lot of marionette lines from this home. From this whole event I've been through, I've aged. Got everyone understands. You got any needles in your Zoom. They don't need it. Dr. Did. Oh, please. Come on by. This is our lawyer. Another lawyer.
Maybe I cooked at her house a couple times. I used to maybe she thought my
Oh yeah.
and my mother made them call me that. So cousin yesterday, I won't mention names, it's not important, but I want to mention his names. You know, he specifically said, my son wrote a post on Facebook about he said that she was a survivor. So my cousin called her, texted me, and he said, make sure that Alicia takes the off of Facebook because Aunt Elsa wasn't a survivor. I texted her right away, told her, you were completely in. What are you talking about? Just because you weren't in, just because you weren't in. I mean, yeah, so it was like, just gotta learn something. No. People need to know that they are survivors. In fact, everyone thought that my mother was her grandmother was my sister was good.
What did you say? He asked me if I wanted to have I need a lot of time to prepare.
102 years.
No.
I say the same thing. I say the same thing.
And then you'll say, then we'll say Kranich. We'll give it a... Bring it after the first one, I'm Sidika Denida. Not Sidika Denida.
You all did a great job speaking. It was really exactly right, you know?
If we can all gather in for the Kaddish.
Okay, we're going to say a Kapitel Tehillim, and then we're going to say the Kaddish. One second, I have David's Kaddish thing. Okay, we're gonna say Tehillim Tezvah for anyone that wants to follow along, but probably no one does. So 1 second. Here we go. We're gonna say Tehillim, and then we'll say Kaddish. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai miyoger be'alecha miyishkom b'harkachecha hoylech tamim u'poyel tzedek v'dover emes b'lovei le'rogal le'shoynoi le'yasel le'rehu ra v'charpa le'nosa kroivei nivze be'ein of nimos v'yirei Adonai yichabe nishpa le'horav le'yomer kaspa le'nosa b'neshech v'shoichad al noki le'lokoch oisei le'yimot li'olam. So, Fran, do you want to say it again? Say what? This whole thing? All right. Yes, please.
This concludes the funeral that will ask the friends and extended family to form an aisleway leading away from the grave so the immediate mourners could walk through and we could offer them the traditional words of condolences. Also, the family will be sitting today from like 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock at the funeral home here in Buffalo Grove, Shiva, and then there'll be Sunday from 12 to 5. So if we can form an aisleway leading up to the road, and then the immediate mourners will walk through.